bleed green? Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. Ready? This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go.
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go.
Welcome to another edition of Birds 365. He's John McMullen, and I'm your guy, Tone DeShields II, filling in for the infamous Jody Mack. He had to take care of some business today, and I'm looking forward to chatting with my man, John. I know we normally get it in on football 24/7, but it's always fun. How are you feeling this morning, John?
Doing well. Infamous for Jody. Well, I don't know. He's famous. I don't know. Well, sometimes I think he's infamous.
Hey, listen, depends on who you talk to, right?
Exactly. Sometimes we get into it. So, all right, I'll go with it.
Yeah, it's definitely entertaining when you guys get into it, man. Because you guys look at the game. You guys approach the game from such variant perspectives. Jody being the radio guy, you being the journalist, right? But when it comes to this Philadelphia Eagles team, I feel like a lot of people have varying positions that they like to talk about them from. Some people feel like this team is entering the playoffs on the wrong foot. A lot of people believe that this team still is very talented and all they need is some time to get right. So I want to pick your brain from that angle. How much stock do you put into momentum? Because again, they went 2-2 in their final 4 games. Hurts missed 2 of those games. The offense didn't seem to have the same level of energy, and on top of that, they lost to their rival, and the play calling seemed to be shaky at times. So again, I'm curious to know, how much stock do you put into momentum, especially at this time of the season?
It can work both ways. I think it helps with confidence. San Francisco being the team. I mean, they've gone on this impressive run, and I do think it breeds confidence. I used to cover Denny Green back in the day. Rest his soul. Great coach. I kind of mentored Tony Dungy and Brian Billick, who went on to win Super Bowls. But he used to say winning is a habit, and to the same degree, losing is a habit. And I agree with that. It's always stuck with me. Obviously, that's why I just brought it up. So I do agree with that part of it. On the other hand, the Eagles by and large have continued to win games, at least when Jalen Hurts is out there, whether, the style points are there or they're not. So, if they had lost a couple games, if Jalen was there and they lost against the Cowboys and the Saints, especially the Saints, I would have went, there might be some issues here, but he wasn't. So I'm not that concerned. And people in Philadelphia should look back to 2017. And, if they remember, the end of the regular season wasn't great. And to the point where the Eagles essentially broke down the offense, and Doug Peterson told John DiPilippo specifically to sort of, let's see what Nick Foles is comfortable with, and let's go in that direction, which is very rare, and that coaching staff deserves a lot of credit. So they were not playing well. And I think people forget they didn't even play well against Atlanta in the divisional round, but they survived, and all of a sudden they took off, and the rest is history. So it can kind of work both ways, but I always like the baseball mentality. Momentum is as important as your next day's starting pitcher. In football, you see it all the time. I mean, that's what kind of separates good teams from great teams, is the consistency from week to week. You'll see good teams, Dallas, Minnesota, teams like that. They're good teams. They won a lot of games. They're good teams, but they're not consistent from week to week, and they have these ugly outlier games. You saw the Cowboys against the Commanders. So it can work both ways, but I'm not too concerned about it, because the Eagles' struggles had to do with Jalen Hurts' injury. Now that I'm concerned about, that I'm concerned about, the health of Jalen Hurts. But from your standpoint, your momentum question, I'm not overly concerned with it.
Yeah, you brought up the fact that this team has been consistent for the most part all year. And really the first hiccup came against Washington, but we saw how that game went. It was their first game turning the ball over that way, and still they had a chance to win that game. And then the next losses came against Dallas and the Saints, games where they did not have their quarterback. So you can kind of make sense of why that turned out the way it turned out. Again, this team's been consistent. They've shown us, see, I believe in trends, right? And that's how you really find out who someone is in any walk of life, right? What have you done in years past, in games past, in weeks past? Whenever you've had opportunities, what have you done? And 14 out of the 17 times the Philadelphia Eagles have won games. So why do you think it is so hard for this fan base, or even people who are critical of the team who may not be fans? Why do you think it's so hard for them to acknowledge the level of consistency the Philadelphia Eagles have had?
Yeah, I don't know. I think, Philadelphia locally, I can't talk, national people don't believe in the team. And I think a lot of that, and some do, some don't. I think a lot of that has to do with not wanting to admit you're wrong against Jalen Hurts. I'm the first. I never thought he could reach this level, but it's okay to change your opinion, or too many people are afraid of doing that. I mean, he's evolved as a player. Give him credit. I think that's difficult for people. So I think that's part of it. Locally, I mean, I think Philadelphia, there's certain things about this city that are never going to go away. And we joke about it when it comes to, aggression on defense, never going to go away. No matter how many rules they change, they could be playing flag football years from now because of the safety concerns. And, they'll be talking about, you got to be more physical. And part of it is, everybody's waiting for the other shoe to drop. And that's always been, all right, when is the bad thing going to happen? I don't know how meaningful that is. I don't think it's meaningful at all. The underdog thing. I wish,
That's never going away, John.
It's never going away. It's another one.
Born and raised here, that's never going away.
Jason Kelsey started his own clothing line with the underdog theme this year, and I told that story on the show. Nick, as he's wont to do, supports his players and is wearing the underdog stuff. And I told him, you haven't been an underdog all year. What are you doing? It's never going away. You're right. It doesn't make sense, but it's never going away.
But I mean, let's really dig deep on it, right? You said it yourself. People tend not to believe in the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't know if it's the colors. I don't know if it's the way the city, the way the fans carry themselves, but generally, at least from what I've always heard throughout the years, the Philadelphia Eagles have always been that team. Oh yeah, by the way, the Philadelphia Eagles, they don't really have the same mystique, or I don't know, they don't carry the same level of respect, or they don't get the same level of respect as teams who probably won the same amount of Super Bowls as them, but because they have certain guys on their team, or maybe because they're a little bit more marketable, they kind of get the looks or they get talked about in a certain light. You know, I don't think that underdog mentality is something that will ever disappear, you know, with this city, with this team, especially when you consider the way they're covered.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. You know, another thing, I think there's a lot of false narratives out there. I mean, one of the things is, you know, there's no doubt. Part of the reason is that people in this city consider their biggest rival to be Dallas, and Dallas is sort of. There are certain teams in every sport: the New York Yankees in baseball, the Lakers or Celtics in basketball when they're doing well. And in football, it's the Cowboys, and they're and it dates back to Tom Landry and Roger Staubach and players that you know the modern generation probably doesn't even remember or doesn't know that much about. And they were a great team and a great dynasty, and they became America's team and all that nonsense. And they deliver the best television ratings. So, you know, the league does defer to them when it comes to national coverage. But the Eagles are top two or I shouldn't say top five. The Eagles are coveted by this league. And the ironic thing about the coverage, and I think it happens, you know, maybe the high profile guys. Think about it. Tony Romo, Cowboys. Troy Aikman, Cowboys. Darryl Johnston, Cowboys. But those guys are good at it. I mean, they're good at it.
So you think it's more so you think it's more so amongst their peers, amongst ownership groups, the Philadelphia Eagles are respected as a top five organization. But as far as media, it's a bit different.
They are the Eagles are coveted when they're forget about as good as they are this year. When they're just, you know, maybe winning 9-10 games, they're always on national TV. You don't have to worry about them getting national TV windows. All us, you hear all us reporters complaining about night games. We don't want night games, and the Eagles have too many damn night games because they're coveted because they draw television ratings. Maybe not quite to the level of the Cowboys, but they draw tremendous ratings. So they're in the haves, so to speak. They're not have-nots. There's a lot of teams that look at the Eagles with envy when it comes to stuff like that. And to be honest, I talked to somebody at the Eagles when they were talking about flexing the Giants game, and it was like, man, I hope they leave us at 1:00. Because they don't want night games. And then the second thing is that from the coverage standpoint, NFL Films has been in Mount Laurel, New Jersey for years. There are actually so many Eagles fans in TV. Fans are TV's a little different than reporters. Eagles fans who, you know, are in the industry because of where NFL Films has been for so long. I think people don't realize that. How many people actually pull for the Philadelphia Eagles? Probably more than any other team, to be honest. That's gonna slap people in the face a little bit. So I think it's a false narrative. I really do. I think and Joe Buck doesn't hate the Eagles. There's 31 other teams that think Joe Buck hates us. No, he doesn't. He's objective. He doesn't. You know, and if you want, I always, you know, for me, this is very difficult and I get very in trouble because media has shifted towards, you know, people assume all the time, well, they don't know me. It's so funny because in one day I'll get accused of being an Eagles fan because I say something nice about them. And I'll be accused of being a hater because I say something honest about them. Same day, different people see things through a different lens. But the assumption is because I cover the team, I'm an Eagles fan. I'm not an Eagles fan. Never have been, never will be. I'm not a fan of any of these teams. I'm old school from that perspective. You can't do this job correctly if you can't be objective. That bothers me. It bothers a lot of older school guys. But that's the way the world is going. So it shifts in that direction. It's very hard for people to believe that announcers, reporters can be objective. They can, and most of them are, especially the ones who do it the right way.
Hey, objectively speaking, you are one of the best covering the Eagles, and objectively speaking, everyone loves a true underdog story. Next up we have our guy Ricky Ricardo. Man, I've been looking forward to this conversation. I'm prepared for this one. He's the Spanish radio play-by-play voice for the New York Yankees and the Philadelphia Eagles, and also a talk show host on.
Now, how about that? Yankees and Eagles. Ricky's
right.
Got
that's
that,
right. Talk about being objective, right?
Yeah, man.
He's also a talk show host on 94 WIP and WFAN. And also a voiceover actor. So Ricky Ricardo is a jack of all trades, man. So I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say about these Philadelphia Eagles being in the playoffs, having the number one seed, having that bye. It's going to be really exciting to hear what he has to say. You guys are locked in on Birds 365. Continue to smash that like button. Continue to stay engaged. You have a lot of things to cover. So keep it locked, you guys. Ricky Ricardo is coming up next.
Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Number 1, Jeff D'Ambrosio. Destination Downingtown is rolling back prices for a December to remember. For a limited time, you can own, not lease, brand new 2023 Jeep Wranglers for only $30,995 or $339 per month. New Rams starting at only $30,995 or new Ram 1500 Bighorn Crew Cabs $189 per month. Zero down can deliver. Get the price you want, the selection you need, and the VIP treatment you deserve. Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown, Big Finish Sales Event.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Game Show with Seth Joyner.
I knew that they had a running game.
Derek Gunn.
He has put in the effort.
Devin Caney.
Had we not won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying?
And Mike Missinelli.
Well, you know who Philly is.
Post Game, now streaming on the 6ABC family of apps.
Welcome back to Birds 365. He's John McMullen. I'm your guy, Tony Shields, the second filling in for Jody Mack. And we're joined by the legendary voice of the Eagles in Espanol, Ricky Ricardo, covering the New York Yankees and the Philadelphia Eagles. Ricky, how are you feeling, sir?
Morning, Tone. J Mac, how are you? How is everybody?
Ricky. Yeah, good to see you, bud. Yeah, it's getting some of that Aaron Judge money up there with the New York Yankees. Now that is big time. That's why I love
Aaron's going to get close to my salary.
Yeah,
this year.
close. I figured he'd get about 3/4 was my guess. Pre-deal. Good to see you, though, Ricky. Wanted to talk. Tone and I were discussing momentum going into the playoffs. Obviously, the Eagles weren't playing their best football. I think that's fair to say at the end of the season. A lot of context to that, starting with Jalen Hurts. So that's where I want to start. And is the momentum a bigger concern for you, or the health of the quarterback? Because here's Nick Sirianni again on Tuesday saying, "Oh, we knew he was going to be hurting like hell, and Jalen knew he was going to be hurting like hell." What the heck is going on with this injury? When it first happened, they were like, "Oh, he might be back for Dallas." 6 days later, now he's hurting like hell over 3 weeks later.
I think to a certain extent, somebody might be trying to pull our leg a little bit, because if this guy is as hurt as they make it seem to be, and those very comments you just mentioned, then we're coming right out of the gate with, 8 straight pass plays at the beginning of the game? You would think if your MVP quarterback is in that much discomfort that you would rely heavily on your running game, or you'd figure out some other way other than using the quote-unquote very painful right arm and shoulder of Jalen Hurts. So I don't know how much of this is gamesmanship and how much of it is fact. As far as momentum is concerned, in baseball they say momentum is as good as your next day starting.
Yeah, I said that.
Yeah.
Ricky, way to go, bud.
So as far as this particular situation with a week off, I think all bets are off. I think you scrub everything with this bye week. This is huge to have this bye week here for the Eagles to kind of have a complete reset. I think this team will come out. It'll look a lot more, guys, in my opinion. It'll look a lot more like the undefeated team. And a lot of this is not even just on Jalen Hurts, but on Lane Johnson, who to me is just you can't understate the impact of not having him on that right side of the offensive line. But I do believe, and my gut is telling me, that when they do hit the field, and I believe, and I don't know if we're going to get into this or not, but I think it'll be against the Giants, and it'll probably be on Saturday night, because I'm picking Tampa Bay to win, and I'm picking the Giants to beat Minnesota. So I think on Saturday night at Lincoln Financial Field, which I guess would be the 21st, I think it's Eagles-Giants, and I think Jalen Hurts will be just fine, and you're going to see a tremendous turnpike tussle battle round 3 between those two division opponents. Just a wild guess of mine, obviously speculative, but I think that's the direction we're going in.
Hey, Ricky, we're definitely going to get into that, and I would definitely have to agree with you about those Giants. But, you brought up Lane Johnson, and protecting Jalen Hurts, especially at this time in the season, is going to be paramount to their success in the grand scheme of things. And Lane Johnson is important. I never want to pretend like his role in this team is minimized or doesn't matter. He is vital. He's vital. He's a vital cog. He's vital to this team's success. But, since he's going down, to me at least, it seems like the rest of this offensive line is being slept on. I'm not saying Jack Driscoll was on his level. I'm not saying Andre Dillard is on his level. But you still have an all-pro center, Jason Kelce. You still have a Pro Bowler in Landon Dickerson. You have 2 Pro Bowl alternates in Jordan Mailata and Isaac Samalu. So, I'm asking you, right? Do you think that the rest of this offensive line is being overlooked without Lane Johnson?
He's just, Tony, he's a real pillar of that line. He balances things out. What I saw in the couple of games without Lane, as compared to, let's say, the first 11, 12 weeks before guys start really getting nicked up, is pressure is getting to Jalen Hurts a little bit quicker. The decision that Jalen has to make between I'm going to get rid of the football or I'm going to run, that decision-making process has been accelerated from that side of the line. You can, when you're in my booth and you're obviously watching, it's almost like a human all 22 that I've got when I'm calling the game, as John from the press box. But you can watch some of that pressure come in from that side just a little bit quicker than it does when Lane is there. And that decision-making process is accelerated. And look, Jalen up until now, I think, has been able to handle it. But you saw some of the turnovers. Remember, this team hardly ever turned the football over early in the year. You started to see more penalties later in the year here these last few games. You've seen some more turnovers. They've looked much more, quote unquote, human than they did. It was a football machine, early in the season. You're seeing some of the more mistake-prone moments happen since Lane has been out. So you had to use a tight end on that side to help out Driscoll a little bit more, which takes away, I think, from Dallas Goedert's use as a receiver. So having Lane, I think, is a two-tier return. I think you can leave him on an island on that side. Goddard is much more effective now as a receiver, as a receiving tight end. You don't have to use Stoll and everyone else for help on that side. It just helps the offense in several ways. A domino effect having Lane out. Not saying that the rest of the line doesn't deserve all the credit, as you mentioned, Tone. This is one of the best, if not the best, offensive line in the entire National Football League. But I tell you what, that's a key pillar on that side of the line when you've got Lane out.
Just a quick follow-up, John. Sorry, John. I don't mean to interrupt. Just a quick follow-up. So if you're the man in charge, Ricky, I think we all know how the team is going to handle the offensive line. They might have Drake just go out there in the event that Lane can't go. He says he's going to try to push it. But in the event that he can't go, how would you construct this offensive line?
The idea of using Dillard and Mailata on either side instead of Driscoll, I've heard that idea come up. I don't know if you want to go that draft. I mean, if Lane can't go, I guess you do have to go I would go to Driscoll. Several people have asked me about the other concept, and I'll ask you guys. Mailata and Dillard, one on each side. Where do you put, either guy? But like I said, when you're using Driscoll, the tight end becomes more of a blocking position than a receiving position, at least on, I don't know what percentage more plays, but the offense is not as diverse or as creative as it is when Dallas Goedert is attacking the linebackers. So personally, your question, if I were the guy and I'm making that call, after much consideration, I'd probably still go Driscoll with some help on that side. Although the concept of having Dillard and Mailata on either side of the line has been brought up to me.
Yeah, I think, Ricky, that had to do with the fact that they always expected Lane back for the playoffs, and Lane's going to try to play through this. So, in other words, if Lane was deemed out for the season and he had surgery, I think it would have been a more serious conversation. All right, we got to get our best five on the field. We got to move Jordan to the right side because he doesn't care. Jordan doesn't care. He'll do it.
He doesn't care.
Andre Dillard is very uncomfortable on the right side, so he would have to play left tackle. I think if Lane was out, and we knew done for the season, I think that would have been a more serious conversation. But the Eagles knew it was a stopgap. It was about getting through 2 games. And I think you're right about, but there's not much to criticize about this coaching staff. They've done a tremendous, tremendous job. We know Shane Steichen's going to interview for 3 head coaching jobs over the weekend. Jonathan Gannon may be the front runner in Houston. Great job by this coaching staff. One little nitpick I would have, and you were talking about you need to help Jack Driscoll on the right side. I don't think they help him enough. I think they're used to leaving Lane and Jordan on an island, and that helps. That is such a luxury because it enables you to do so many things on offense. Same thing defensively when we saw with Avonte Maddox, him being out of the lineup at times. They tell Josiah Scott, hey, we're going to play this quirky Tampa 2 invert defense. Make sure you hit your landmark. You got to make it a little bit more comfortable. If that's Avonte Maddox, fine. We saw it with Reed Blankenship and C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Reed's done a tremendous job as an undrafted rookie, but you can't expect him to do what C.J. does.
No.
I think too often they believe the hype on this next man up mentality, and they say, all right, next guy up, do what this guy does. And that's not realistic to me. Am I being too nitpickish, Ricky Ricardo?
No, I don't think you are. Look, the depth on this team has been tested. It's done a heck of a job. I'm the first one that'll sit here and tell you, when I saw Blankenship, for that torpedo attitude of his is refreshing, but it's dangerous. But I tell you what, Howie Roseman, who I believe this morning, did I read somewhere where Howie Roseman, or maybe NFL Network, is really being touted as executive of the year.
Yeah.
All applause has to go, and all the credit in the world has to go to a guy like that and his staff for putting together layer after layer of guys that can take that mentality of the next man up to a certain level. But obviously, when you've got guys the talent level of a C.J. Gardner-Johnson or an Avonte Maddox, there's only so much you can do. That's why these guys are backups. Let's be frank about it. Having said that, they've done an incredible job, but really the level that they need to reach to be able to have that luxury, as you mentioned, John, is something that it's a tightrope that you walk each and every time that you put those guys out there.
Yeah, speaking of guys like Reed Blankenship and Josiah Scott, Ricky, it makes me think about where those guys would normally be, right? Being undrafted, being lowly drafted, right? Those guys would typically be on the special teams. And, we talked about momentum, and the Philadelphia Eagles special teams hasn't had the greatest of momentum earlier in the season, but it seems like they're starting to get things figured out in that regard. And, it makes me think about the 2017 team. I was watching some old film of the 2017 Super Bowl team for the Philadelphia Eagles, and outside of the offense and defense, what made that team so special, so dynamic, was their ability to make plays on special teams. So I guess my question for you is, has this version of the Philadelphia Eagles elevated their special teams in a way that you can trust them in the postseason?
In the last month, Tone, in the last 3-4 games, marked improvement. Especially, look, Boston Scott adds a dimension on kickoffs, and, we've seen against the Giants. So you're talking about 2 Giant games with Boston Scott being this incredible giant killer. So really, when I'm looking at Eagles special teams, I think they hit their probably all-time low sometime around Thanksgiving. But since then, in the month of December, marked improvement. I don't exactly know. Maybe, John, you can help me out here. I don't exactly know where I can put my finger on it to say exactly where I think they have elevated their game on special teams the most. I think in every aspect it's gotten better. But I agree with you, Tone. This team's special teams in every facet, right around that December, who did we play? Tennessee? Yeah. It was Tennessee on my birthday on December 4th, and then the Giants on December 11th, especially up in the Meadowlands. I think, if memory serves me correctly, from that game on the 11th of December in New York, things have gotten markedly better, much better in every facet of special teams. And I do agree, the Super Bowl winning team, Doug Peterson's team, on special teams, I think they were one of the top in the entire league that season, not just one of the better Eagles versions of special teams that we have seen. Because I remember we were talking about the special teams coaches, being lauded, around the league at that particular time. But
they were special. The special teams were special.
They were very special. Yeah. So, marked improvement in the last month. And I think that's going to be huge going into this postseason.
Yeah, one of my early criticisms of the Eagles, because special teams is about the only thing they haven't done well. I think overall through the whole season, you're right, that Tennessee game is when it kind of started to turn around a little bit, Ricky, because it was the Green Bay game before that where they had all the issues with the kick returner there, Nixon. And then they started elevating Christian Ellis, who proved to be a very good special teams player. They ultimately had to put him on the 53 because he was so good. That's what the Eagles did under Dave Bipp. And Dave got here during Chip Kelly's reign.
Right.
And then they always had the Chris Maragoses, the Brian Braymonds. They had guys who were specifically there for special teams. I think the Eagles got away from that. Even Rudy Ford was a heck of a special teams player when he was healthy. They brought him in. I think they got away from some of that, and they got back to it by putting Christian Ellis on the team. So I think that helped. I think putting Boston Scott at kick returner. Boy, if there's one thing that was so obvious, Quez Watkins is not a good kick returner. We've seen it for 2 years.
Yeah, right.
We've seen it for 2 years. Britton Covey, nicest kid in the world, just doesn't have the long speed to be a kickoff returner. And you got Boston Scott. Now he's not going to be Cordero Patterson, but he's rock solid, and he's going to get you what you should get on a particular kickoff return. But I'll still say, Ricky, still concerns me special teams. Aaron Cepas is out. Wasn't that great to begin with. Now you have Brett Kern, who hasn't exactly knocked it out of the park as a punter. Jake Elliott's been solid, but I think there are 13 categories, Pro Football Focus grades. The Eagles are top half of the league in 12. The only thing they're bottom half in the league in is special teams, and I think they're number 30. So they're way down at the bottom. So that is my one concern about this team going into the playoffs.
Well, I think they were that bad early in the year. And as you said, I think things bottomed out that night against Green Bay. We've seen the marked improvement. Is it enough to get them out of the, that number 30 hole? And I think that ranking is well-deserved, John. I'm not even arguing with that ranking. I'm agreeing. But I'm saying, I agree, early in the season, until they got a couple of things straightened out, it was pathetic. It was one of the worst, if not the worst, in the league. So I think what they have returned to or have improved to is a level of competent special teams, but the word special still does not describe this particular group.
Yeah, I at this point, I would call them average teams, right?
Yeah, the average.
Definitely. It makes me think about Green Bay last year. They were a team that was the number 1 seed. They had the best quarterback. They had Devontae Adams still. They were firing on all cylinders. But then they ran up against the San Francisco 49ers at Lambeau in the snowstorm. And that's the kind of game where offense is not going to have their best day. You're going to need you're going to have to play 60 minutes of football. You're going to need everyone to do their job to the best of their ability. And it just seemed it didn't seem. It was the fact that the special teams laid an egg. They lost that game strictly because of special teams. And one of my fears, and I know John has brought this up earlier in the season, one of my fears with this team is that, they'll check every box offensively and defensively, but they may drop the ball on special teams. They may give up a score or give up bad field position on a potential game-winning drive for whatever quarterback they're going up against, right? So, I mean, does the special teams concern you enough to the point where it can be a liability in the playoffs, or are you in a more comfortable position now?
Interesting you brought up that San Francisco Green Bay game. In this particular round, Tone, they're going to get – my heart tells me the Niners are going to beat Seattle. So more than likely you're going to get the team that I think is going to be the Eagle opponent, the Giants, or Dallas. You're going to get the Giants or the winner of the Dallas Tampa Bay game. Against either one of those three teams, and especially the Giants, because Boston Scott plays such a big role on Eagles special teams, and he is a giant killer.
He is.
It doesn't worry me as much as it will if and when the Eagles play an NFC championship game against those very 49ers that you mentioned, because it's still locked in my head, the block punt, everything that happened against Green Bay. The Niners special teams are special. They're still playing that way this season. So to answer you, and I know it might sound like a cop-out of an answer, but against the three teams that could possibly be the opponent in the divisional round, I think we're okay. NFC championship game against the Niners, maybe a little colder, a little bit deeper into the month of January, much more reminiscent of that Saturday night at Lambeau, then my concern level will rise significantly.
I think Eagles fans should hope your scenario comes true, because I look at the 4 potential opponents, Ricky, and I grade them and I say, who would who would be the easiest path for the Eagles to get to the championship game? And let's be honest, they should beat all 4 of the potential teams. So you mentioned Seattle, probably not going to beat San Francisco. The Giants, a lot of people think they're going to beat Minnesota because, the Vikings are leaking oil, barely beat them last time they played them. And then you have the Bucs versus the Cowboys. But from the Eagles' perspective, I think the easiest of those 4 opponents by far, is the New York Giants. I don't see how they lose to the New York Giants. Styles make bites. We all know that. When the Eagles were playing back at MetLife, that was probably the most impressive. They destroyed the Giants. Talking to Pat Leonard from the Daily Newsday. Sorry, thank you for correcting me. And he was like, he's covered the Giants for a long time. He's never seen them admit, we got our asses kicked. We got destroyed. They were shook by just how dominant the Eagles were in that game. Boy, if the Giants come here, and you're going to hear all that talk, division rival, hard to beat a team 3 consecutive times. They're going to roll over that team. If I'm an Eagles fan, bring it on. That's who I want.
Well, the other side of that argument is that the Giants did not have their full
the JP.
You didn't have Ojulari. You didn't have some of the corners. McDaniel is back. So Adoree Jackson is playing this week, so he's back.
Nobody played in that final game. I mean, nobody.
No, even at the Meadowlands. Yeah. Even the first game on the 11th.
Yeah. Adoree was out. Yeah. Xavier McKinney was out. Yeah. You're right. And they're going to try to play, but they're also banged up. So when we also talk about, and by the way, they're good players. They're not great players. Remember, when we go back to the preseason, there were 2 teams that everybody looked at in the NFC that weren't even trying, right? They were rebuild mode, complete rebuild. And this, by the way, is the reason I'm voting for Brian Daboll as coach of the year. I love you, Nick, but I'm rooting for Brian Daboll because he's done the most with the least. And I think he's done an amazing job. We all said it about Chicago, Ricky, and it turned out to be true. They weren't even trying to win. They were in full rebuild mode. That's what everybody thought about the Giants. They weren't even trying to win. They were in complete rebuild mode. And all of a sudden, Brian Daboll's got them winning games. So I give tremendous credit for the head coach, Mike Kapka as well, old friend of ours here in Philadelphia, former Eagles backup quarterback. I think that coaching staff has done a tremendous job. But I talked about those PFF rankings for the Eagles, how impressive they are. They grade the New York Giants just on the film as the 29th best team in the NFL. Only worse is Arizona, Chicago, Houston. In other words, they don't have the talent to deal with the Philadelphia Eagles. Brian Daboll is phenomenal. He's going to bring every mirror he's got. He's going to try every trick in the book. But at the end of the day, they just don't have the horses to deal with the Eagles.
I think they leave their best effort. And I watched a little bit of the film of the Giant-Viking game from a few weeks ago. The Giants had that game in hand. And I am also one of these guys, fellas, that I have seen enough of a sample size of one Kirk Cousins to not buy into Cousins in any kind of a big game situation.
Well, that's time, but that's what, Minnesota's got some issues. But the honest, if Minnesota brings their A game, and you're right, they probably won't. Oh, they'll kill the Giants. I mean, they're the ones with Justin Jefferson. They're the ones with Kirk Cousins throwing for 4,500 yards every stinking year. They're the ones with Danielle Hunter and Zadarius Smith and her. I mean, they have better players. Now, does that show up on game day? They've struggled mightily defensively. But either way, if it's the Giants or the Seahawks or the Bucks or the Cowboys, the Eagles should beat any of those teams in the divisional round. But if you said John McMullen, who's the easiest path? New York Giants.
To bounce off of John, Ricky.
I'm looking forward to that. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm picking the Giants. I think San Francisco wins, and I will be at Raymond James Stadium. Remember, it's about a 45-minute drive from where I'm sitting right now. So Monday night, I will be at Raymond James Stadium. It'll either be the game that puts that puts Tom Brady out in San Francisco, because I'm picking the Giants on Sunday, or it could be Brady's last game in a Tampa Bay Buccaneer uniform. But either way, I want to be there and watch it. But I think Tampa will beat Dallas. They've beaten them, they beat them this year on opening day in Dallas. They've got their number per se. And I do think the Eagles should beat, as you said, any one of these four. But to have a turnpike tussle, one more round.
Yeah, it's good for the rivalry standpoint.
And the rivalries. Because I'm one of those people, guys, that believes, and I've said this on my radio show on several occasions, and I've had polls up, had fans call back and forth. I think long term, the Eagles' real rival are the Giants.
Oh, I agree.
Over the Cowboys.
I agree. But they dominated. There was that great commercial, Ricky. I don't know if you remember. Alec Baldwin, Yankees fan, John Krasinski, Red Sox fan. And it was at the time before the Red Sox had turned it around, won a couple World Series. And the whole gist of the commercial was they were going back and forth, talking a little trash to each other. And Alec Baldwin said, hey, Kindling doesn't have a rivalry with fire. And that's been the Eagles and the Giants. I mean, they have dominated this rivalry since 2006. I think the Giants finally got it right with Brian Daboll. I think that it's going to, it's going to become more of a rivalry again in the upcoming years. But Kindling, man, doesn't have a rivalry with fire.
No, I'll tell you what Daboll has been able to do with Daniel Jones and make him let's be honest. I think Daniel Jones had one foot out the door before this season started. And I think now at this point the Giants are going to have to re-sign him to some sort of a long-term deal.
Yeah.
You're
right.
What other option do they have with Daniel Jones, right? Speaking of this wild card weekend and preferred matchups, in the divisional round, Ricky, I have to ask you, if the Eagles are to get to the Super Bowl, like we would expect them to do, what's your preferred path? So I think we all can agree that the Giants is probably the better matchup in the divisional round. Taking it a step further from there, what's the preferred path to the Super Bowl?
Well, Tone, I think the preferred path would be somehow to get the Vikings into the NFC Championship game. I don't see it happening that way.
That'd be nice.
That'd be great. Nice.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be Brock Purdy, who could end up being, think about this, Brock Purdy could end up being the only quarterback, I believe it would be the only quarterback ever to be undefeated to get to a Super Bowl. Because Bob Greasy, although he had a perfect season, 72 Dolphins, lost a game or two the year before that. But preferred path, Minnesota. Realistically, I think it's going to end up being Niners, Eagles at the Link on a cold third, fourth weekend, whatever it may be, of the month of January. And we can have this conversation anew and a fresh conversation when that happens. Preferred, Vikings. Realistically, Niners.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But, number one, number two seeds, there's a lot of upsets in the NFL, so you never know what happens. We'll leave it there. The great Ricky Ricardo, RR_Ricardo, FAN. Make sure you follow him on Twitter. You can listen to him locally on WIP, up WFAN. He's everywhere. The voice of the Eagles, the voice of the Yankees, and a great guy as well.
Thank you, fellas. Appreciate it.
And enjoy Tom Brady's last game in Tampa. And don't sleep on Las Vegas, by the way. Don't sleep on Las Vegas. Don't sleep on Las Vegas for Tom next year.
No. He will be a Miami Dolphin next year.
Yeah. Stephen Ross, the Michigan man, he already tried to make that happen.
Well, I think
a lot of trouble. Yeah.
Remember, Brady's kids live on Star Island, in Miami, and he's going to want to be as near his kids as possible. I think Tom Brady, if he plays one more year, I think Tua might take a year off to clear the cobwebs. Yeah. No, I'm not trying to make light of the of his situation, but I just think physically, I think Tom Brady might end up being. You give him those weapons that they've got in Miami, look out.
Ricky, thank you so much, my friend. You've done great work for us. You take care. You enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully we got something good to talk about in the next several weeks.
Enjoy the wild card, the super wild card weekend.
Super wild card weekend.
Again soon.
Thanks, Ricky.
Oh man, that was fun. I really enjoyed talking to Ricky. His perspective is always unique, and being the legendary voice of the Eagles in Espanol, you get so many different perspectives. Man, he holds it down, and I'm grateful for that. So, John, what we're going to do here is we're going to take our next break of the show. Continue to smash that like button, you guys. We have a lot of conversation left to attack, and I have a question for John in the next segment. That I think a lot of you guys in the chat section are really going to want to get involved in, that you guys are really going to want to get engaged in. So again, he's John McMullen. I'm your guy, Tone DeShields II. Excuse me, can't even pronounce my own name. Wow. I'm filling in for the famous Jody McDonald. We'll see you next time, guys. We'll be back in a minute.
Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Number 1, Jeff D'Ambrosio. Destination Downingtown is rolling back prices for December to remember. For a limited time, you can own, not lease, brand new 2023 Jeep Wranglers for only $30,995 or $339 per month. New Rams starting at only $30,995 or new Ram 1500 Bighorn Crew Cabs $189 per month. Zero down can deliver. Get the price you want, the selection you need, and the VIP treatment you deserve. Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown, Big Finish Sales Event.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Game Show with Seth Joyner.
I knew that they had a running game.
Derek Gunn.
He has put in the effort.
Devin Caney.
Had we not won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying?
And Mike Missinelli.
Well, you know who Philly is.
Post game, now streaming on the 6ABC family of apps.
Welcome back to Birds 365. I'm joined by John McMullen, and I'm your guy, Tone DeShields II. And man, so far so good. I think I'm doing all right filling in for Jody Mack. What would you say, John?
I'm going to give you a solid 9 just because I want to keep you striving, sort of like Jalen Hurts. Always keep the standard. Always keep the standard up. Reach for perfection, and you're never going to reach it, but keep getting better and better and better and better.
Hey, aim for the moon and pray you land on the stars. So yeah, we had our guy Ricky Ricardo on the last segment. Did great work for us. We're grateful to him. But I have a topic that I want to bring up with you, John. You know, this Philadelphia Eagles team has been special all year. They've broken records. There are Pro Bowlers all over this team. There are Pro Bowl alternates all over this team. There are
17 of them.
Exactly. All pros on this team, most notably on the offensive line and in the DB room. We have a potential coach of the year, the most wins in franchise history. You know, a young quarterback who appears to only be getting better and better. But, you know, this playoff run, nothing is guaranteed. Everything you've done yesterday means absolutely nothing. Everyone is 0-0 at this point in the NFL season going into the playoffs. Now, I say all that to say, who on this roster, in your opinion, and I'm going to make it a little easier, who on this roster offensively and who on this roster defensively, 1-1, who on this roster offensively and defensively has to have a special performance in the playoffs for the Philadelphia Eagles to get where they need to go, not named Jalen Hurts?
It's funny, and I only laugh at that because my answer is nobody in the divisional round. Like if the Eagles lose the divisional round game, that would be such a disaster for this organization. That's how much better they are than everybody. Then it gets more difficult projecting. As Ricky said, the most likely opponent is San Francisco. Even that isn't as difficult as it would have been. With all due respect to Brock Purdy, who's played tremendously. You know, I've been saying it for a couple of days now. I can't be scared of Brock Purdy. I just can't. I'm sorry. Especially when you're playing at the level the Eagles are. Then if you get to the Super Bowl, then, you know, significant issues, whether it's Kansas City, Buffalo, Cincinnati. Anybody who comes out of the AFC is going to be really, really, really good. So that would be a very difficult matchup no matter what. But to get to that level, to win the Super Bowl, I think you're going to have continued, and I should have mentioned this, I meant to mention it while Ricky was on, Hassan Reddick defensively, Defensive Player of the Month, another award, another day, another award for the Eagles. He's having a tremendous season. He's got to continue that through the playoffs. Offensively, obviously, you took Jalen Hurts out of the equation.
Couldn't make it easy, right?
No, yeah. I want to say Lane Johnson because of I don't know how healthy he's going to be, and everything about the playmakers is tied to the quarterback. So if you're taking the quarterback out of the equation, I kind of take the playmakers out of the equation.
Fair enough.
So to me, it's about Lane Johnson's health. And are we going to see the typical Lane Johnson, or is it going to be a guy severely limited like Jalen Hurts was against the Giants?
You know, you brought up Hassan Reddick and the all-pro teams. Well, the NFLPA all-pro teams came out, and I'm not sure if the writers are still coming up with their version. I'm not really sure. I would assume.
Yeah, we have our version. The voting is going on now.
Okay.
I forget when it ends, but yeah, the Pro Football Writers have theirs. The AP is the official all-pro team. That'll be coming out Friday, I believe. Our buddy Rob Motti handles all the voting for that.
Oh,
wow. So the AP all-pro team is like the official all-pro team.
And just out of curiosity, what makes the AP the official one?
It's been that way for years. You know, it's just sort of inertia at this point. There's a lot of all-pro teams. Pro Football Focus had its all-pro team this week. As I said, the Pro Football Writers, we have our all-pro team. Now the NFLPA has its all-pro team. But the official one, when you'll see years down the line, right, and the Hall of Fame voters will say so-and-so has 6 all-pro teams, 6 all-pros. They're talking about the AP all-pro team.
Okay. But yeah, Hassan Reddick, right? 16 sacks, 5 forced fumbles, double-digit tackles for loss. He's been a force. Like you said, Defensive Player of the Month. And it makes me think, is it possible Hassan Reddick potentially was snubbed off of the NFLPA's all-pro team? Because I was looking at some of the names. Some of them seemed like legacy picks. And so, a lot of them made sense. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the list. But again, Hassan Reddick's
Yeah, I
season has
saw
been
it.
spectacular.
I mean, I always joke the NFL Network has their top 100 players that the players vote on, and people get so upset about it every year. And I've been in the locker room now for, I don't know, 6, 7 straight years when the Eagles are doing it, and they spend about 10 seconds on it. So I always say I wouldn't get too upset because the players aren't, sitting there watching film, deciding who's the best players. So, yeah, from their perspective, and that's why AP is another reason, it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it's, the voters have a more, a better understanding on who's having a good season on a particular season. There's a lot of legacy stuff. I saw one fan complaining Aaron Donald, it might have been the NFLPA all-pro team, I don't know, got all-pro nod over Javon Hargrave, which is silly. Aaron Donald's one of the greatest defensive players of all time, and even if the Rams have a bad season, no offense to Javon Hargrave would be the first guy to say Aaron Donald's better than me. Aaron Donald's better than everybody.
I think people got upset about that is because Javon played every game.
Yeah,
and Aaron Donald didn't,
So, and that's where the legacy part is, but also when he's out there.
No comparison.
No, I mean, Jody and I get into it with stats all the time. And I'm not a big stats guy. I'm just not, especially in football. I mean, other sports, it's more meaningful in baseball, where you have these large sample sizes and things like that. So much of statistics is based upon your supporting cast. Like Hassan Reddick has been a great pass rusher now in Arizona, Carolina, Philadelphia. He had a career year. Why do you have a career year? Well, now he's got Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox and Josh Sweat, and you got to worry about those guys. So, it depends how you gauge it. But if you're gauging it by stats, yeah, it looks like Hassan should be an all-pro. If you talk to people around the league, he's a very good player. Is he as difficult to deal with? I'm going to get in trouble here. Is he as difficult to deal with as Micah Parsons? No, he's not.
Yeah, I think with Hassan Reddick, it's one of those things like Hassan Reddick, he's what you call a specialist. He is a pure pass rusher. That's what he does. That's all he should be doing. But when you even consider thinking about dropping him back in coverage, or where you even consider having him out there and run stopping situations, he can become a liability. He's not the biggest body right there. I think he's only about 6'2", maybe 240 pounds. He's not the kind of body you want in run defense, right?
Yeah, that dropping back in coverage, that's one of those criticisms. Jonathan Gannon had some fun. There was a bunch of people that didn't understand he was trolling them.
He definitely was. And I don't know how I felt about it, I'll be honest.
When he said, yeah, if I didn't drop him back in coverage so much, he'd probably have 25 sacks. And,
He
it's
poked
funny
he
that
poked the
people,
bear on that one, John. You know, he
yeah,
poked
it's
the bear on
funny.
that one.
It's funny that people didn't get the joke. For those who don't know, Hassan has never dropped less in coverage in his career than he has this year.
Interesting.
But I always like Jim Swartz. I like my baseball analogies. If Nolan Ryan is out there, and you're younger, so who's the power pitcher now? Anybody who throws 100, everybody throws 100 now. They don't throw fastball every time. They don't throw fastball. Got to throw a curveball. Everybody's got to drop into coverage. Every single edge rusher in this league drops into coverage. Every single one. Every single one of them. Even defensive ends. The Eagles play a different scheme, obviously. Hassan's technically a linebacker. You think there's a linebacker in this league that doesn't drop into coverage at times? There might not be a linebacker in the league that drops into coverage less than Hassan Reddick, but they all drop into coverage. You got to throw a curveball occasionally. It's silly to say somebody shouldn't drop into coverage. That's people are going to, that makes it much, much easier for the quarterback. If all right, 7's out on the field, he's coming, as opposed to maybe making a mistake and he drops into his own and you expect him to be coming. I mean, that's as simple as I can explain it. People who think linebackers don't drop into coverage I've been using this word a lot this week when it comes to the defensive coordinator. I'm sorry. That's insanity.
I asked you earlier about, which players need to have a dominant postseason for the Philadelphia Eagles to be successful. And, on the offense, you mentioned Lane Johnson, right? Very, very good pick, by the way. That makes a lot of sense. I would argue Miles Sanders. And I understand Miles Sanders, his success has definitely, kind of largely been related to Jalen Hurts' ability to manipulate the run game. But, Miles Sanders, by my estimation, in my opinion, he has to be dominant in the playoffs. He has to dominate his matchups. And, ultimately, with Jalen Hurts coming off of this injury, we just don't know how effective he will be in the run game. Now, I know the Eagles are going to take the training wheels off. In the playoffs, you got to play every game like it's your last, because it very well might be. But, Miles Sanders, he has to run like his hair is on fire. He can't dance in the backfield like he's done in years past. He has to be a decisive runner. He has to be a one-cut north-south guy. He sees the hole, cut, go get it. He can't waste time back there. He's done a very good job of that throughout the season. And most importantly, he has to protect the ball. So I'm curious to know, what's your breakdown, or what's your thoughts on Miles Sanders' role in this postseason, and how dominant, if dominant at all? Some people just say he just needs to be consistent, but I think he needs to be dominantly consistent, or consistently dominant. What's your thoughts on Miles Sanders in this postseason?
No, I think the more important part of the Eagles' running game is Jalen Hurts, and not throwing the football, not running the football necessarily, but the threat, the so-called +1. The Eagles' running game runs on Jalen Hurts, not Miles Sanders. Number one, he's hurt. He's dealing with that knee injury, so we have to see. Now, he did ultimately, it's tough to tell on game day, he did ultimately ditch the knee brace for the Giants game. So that's a positive sign. We'll see as he continues to practice. They're going to be back on the practice field today. So we'll see how that knee is progressing. So he's not completely healthy. But from your perspective, I don't know. One cut run, that's not what Miles Sanders is. He's not Latavius Murray. I mean, he's not. He's tremendously athletic. He's, the strength of his game. He's not a power runner.
Right.
He's not Derrick Henry. The strength of his game is what it is. I agree with you. You don't want him dancing around too much. One of the problems with Miles earlier in his career, he's trying to hit a home run every play, so to speak.
Is it fair to say that he has been a more physical runner this year?
Yeah.
Though?
Well, he's been a more decisive runner. I think I don't think he's a physical running back. So, compared to some, again, Derrick Henry would be the standard.
Right. Yeah.
But
He's definitely not that.
If you look at, Nick Chubb or some of the other guys who are high profile, get over 1,000 yards, Dalvin Cook, those guys are physical and they finish runs. He's not that type of guy. But he's a very good back. He just goes about it a different way. And he does need to be more decisive. So, the Eagles have kind of preached to him, if the blocking's there for 3 yards, give me 3 yards. If there's a chance to hit the home run, yeah, go hit the home run. But don't try to extend things. Just be more decisive. But physical, that's not the first word I think of when I think about Miles as a running back.
But is it fair to say, if Miles Sanders is firing on all cylinders, even with the injury, right? Because in my opinion, 9 times out of 10, he's not coming back. He's not coming back next year. I just don't think they're going to, I don't think they're going to divvy up the money in order to bring him back. And the way I see it, for as long as you have him, not to sound brash or brazen, but you have to run him into the ground. I'm sorry. This is the playoffs. You're trying to get a Super Bowl. You have to run him until the wheels fall off. And
the Eagles aren't. I mean, the Eagles aren't that team. The Eagles aren't, and that's sort of that old school Philadelphia thinking. I mean,
I can't help it. Sorry, born and raised, no Philly made, man. Can't help it.
Yeah, I mean, they have AJ Brown, they have Devontae Smith, they have Dallas Goedert. They're going to play 11 personnel, and they're going to spread the field. And they're going to play empty sets, and they're going to take advantage. Like I said, they run the football very well, but their running game is based off the zone read and the presence of Jalen Hurts. And Miles, by the way, would be the first one to tell you how much easier Jalen makes it for him to run the football, and the offensive line as well, which is tremendous. They're not going to sit back and pound the football. I mean, that's not what they do. That's not who they are.
But
and that's why it's so important. That's why it's so important that Jalen is healthy and healthy enough to put, because the Eagles scrapped it against the Giants. It's no coincidence that was his worst game, Jalen Hurts. They scrapped the zone read. They took it out of the offense essentially to protect the quarterback from a health standpoint. And, when the Giants figured it out and Wink figured it out, they said, all right, he's not going to run it. That will muddy things up quickly for the Eagles offense. So that to me is the far bigger concern. If they're going to hand the ball off or just, take the option away from Jalen Hurts to run the football, the Eagles are not going to run it that well. They're just not, because they're not built to line up in an I formation and just run the football.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Jalen Hurts is the heart of this running game, but I can't help but to think, and we also have a guy, Bob Groats in the green room. We're going to be bringing him up very soon. But I can't help but to think that if Miles Sanders is firing on all cylinders, if Miles Sanders is hitting the hole, this team is probably unstoppable. Because if you can't stop the running back, and you damn sure can't stop the quarterback from doing his thing, what makes you think you can stop everything else?
Well, Doug Peterson, and I could say this now, one of my favorite moments of the Doug Peterson era was about Mac Hollins. And I'm not comparing Miles. Miles is a very good football player, but Doug said behind the scenes, before he said it in front of the camera, he was getting criticism. They went through the stretch where Miles was a starting receiver, Excuse me, Matt Collins was a starting receiver, but he was more of a blocker. And people were saying, Matt Collins doesn't get any targets. Why doesn't Matt Collins get any targets? And Doug said, he's a sixth stinking option. Why am I drawing up plays for Matt Collins? You guys would kill me if I was drawing up plays. And then he kind of said it in front of the camera, so I can say it now. Again, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. The Eagles' best players on offense are not Miles Sanders. He's a great player. He's a very good player, and it talks to the depth. But I gotta get the football to those guys first. And that's why the Eagles play the way they play.
Hey, I can't argue with that. You guys are locked in on Birds 365. Make sure you smash that like button. It really goes a long way in the algorithms. It really helps the YouTube channel, JAKIB Sports. It really helps the content really get to all the masses. We're trying to go global, you guys. And the more you smash this like button, the more you're engaged, the better the content will flow downstream. And we appreciate you guys for locking in all on the content. Next up, we have Bob Groats. Bob the Hammer Groats, sports writer for the Delco Times, co-host of the Pro Football Report on WBCB on 1490 AM and WIP. Man, all his opinions are his, like he makes it known. So again, you guys are locked in on Birds 365. Looking forward to hearing what Bob Groats has to say. Keep it locked, you guys.
Go for the beers, go for the cheers, go for the hit and the hits, go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Number 1, Jeff D'Ambrosio. Destination Downingtown is rolling back prices for December to remember. For a limited time, you can own, not lease, brand new 2023 Jeep Wranglers for only $30,995 or $339 per month. New Rams starting at only $30,995 or new Ram 1500 Bighorn Crew Cabs $189 per month. Zero down can deliver. Get the price you want, the selection you need, and the VIP treatment you deserve. Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown, Big Finish Sales Event.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Game Show with Seth Joyner.
I knew that they had a running game.
Derek Gunn.
He has put in the effort.
Devin Caney.
Had we not won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying?
And Mike Missinelli.
Well, you know who Philly is.
Post Game, now streaming on the 6ABC family of apps.
We're on the road again. Birds 365 is on the road again with Bob Groats. He's John McMullen, and I'm your guy, Tone DeShields II. Man, Bob, man, you're always on the road, man. You got to tell us, where are you always going?
Well, right now I'm at the dollar store, believe it or not.
The dollar store? I thought you were going to be at Royal Farms, man.
I tried to. I didn't have enough time. Yeah, I was running a little bit late, traffic a little bit more than what I'm used to. I usually don't get up that early, but I'm always glad to get up for Birds 365.
It's a pleasure. Now, Jalen Hurts is speaking today at 10:20, so you're going to be down there. The Eagles screwed me on that one.
Yeah. If you got any questions, just let me know. I'll ask them. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure Jalen will give us all the skinny on his injury. So let's start it there, Bob. I mean, again on Tuesday, Nick Sirianni made this, quote. We knew he was going to be really hurting, essentially, and Jalen knew he was going to be really hurting. I think the actual description was hurting like hell. What the hell is going on with this injury? It's supposed to be 2 to 3 weeks. Now the quarterback's still hurting like hell after the 3-week period. Is this gamesmanship or is this real?
I'm kind of wavering between those. Maybe he did get it hurt more, and they just don't know how to tell us that it was hurt. The injury was more significant than they thought. You know how they'll leak stuff out to the national. Yeah. So maybe they're trying to. They're not going overboard with trying to cover themselves for that, but that might have something to do with it. And I mean, and for him, I thought it was unusual for him to say that he was in pain. So I guess a lot of people, I guess he must have heard that people were thinking that he could have played anyway. And that bothered him.
Yeah, they did a disservice to Jalen Hurts. When they said, remember way back when he burst in, they were talking like he might be back in Dallas 6 days later and saying,
I got to admit, I heard that he could have played earlier too. So, I don't know what to think. Yeah. But you're right. At this point, that's what it looks like.
Yeah, we've been getting a lot of mixed messages from this organization when it comes to Jalen Hurts' health. But despite that, Jalen Hurts has had a season that we ultimately didn't really see coming. I'm pretty sure we all thought he would improve, but to the levels that he has improved, I don't think any of us really accounted for that. And, I have to ask you, Bob, all things considered, now that the regular season is behind us, and now we also have so much more football to play. But again, the regular season is behind us. It is what it is. We saw what we saw from Jalen Hurts. He went 14-1 as the starter. The team ended up going 14-3. What has impressed you the most about Jalen Hurts' development this season?
His decision making, and he's known, at least until the Chicago game was a little bit of an aberration. Maybe that cold really did affect him, but his decision making was really good until that game, and he took some shots there. So maybe it was the cold. He said he wasn't used to playing in that, but he's known exactly when to throw, when to hold the ball. And look, some of those touchdown runs that he's had 11 of them, right? Is that right? 11?
Yeah. I think 13, 12, something like that.
Yeah. But he just walked into the end zone, sometimes from 5 yards out, sometimes 3 yards. It wasn't always that double push quarterback sneak or anything. I mean,
that's really the height. That's like the core of their red zone efficiency.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
But he had 13 was the actual number, 13 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah. 13. Wow. I missed a couple, but yeah, I got to say though, I mean, his ability to see things down there and last week, what was it? Incompletion out of bounds when he was in the red zone, he rolled out and then threw.
Well, they took the zone read off the table. That's the problem I had, Bob, because they're so effective. It's not about Jalen Hurts even running the football. It's the threat of him running the football to the opposing defense. And when you take that off the table, and Wink Martindale kind of figured that out during that game, it becomes much more difficult for the Eagles. It becomes much more difficult.
And they had a real vanilla attack too. They didn't show anything because I think they know they're going to play the Giants. We all think the Giants are going to beat the Vikings.
Most
I
people
do. I'm with you, Bob. I do. I think it's going to happen. I'm sorry.
I don't see the Vikings stopping them. You know, they rested Saquon and some of those linemen. They're going to be smash mouths. So, but
I mean, people who watch this show know that I've been saying the Vikings are a fraud basically all season, but they're better than the stinking Giants.
Well,
I mean, I'm stunned. I'm stunned how many people are. Now, the Giants might beat them. But I'm stunned how many people think like they have no chance at home. And that's a very difficult place to play.
Well, didn't they get beat by Dallas at home?
Crushed? Oh, they got destroyed.
They got
Dallas. But they're 8-1 at home. That was the only game they lost at home.
Yeah. Well, I just have I don't think they can stop anybody. I really don't.
Oh, they don't. Their defense is terrible.
Got to get a big lead and then hope the other team throws it every day.
But I'll say this: if you're Wink Martindale, you're blitz. We all know Wink. He blitzed 1,000 times against the Eagles. You're gonna let Adoree Jackson, who hasn't played for the second half of the season, cover Justin Jefferson 1-on-1.
Wink does not care, John. Wink does not care.
I think he's right there with Bradbury. Probably a little bit better than Bradbury.
Ooh, there's a Bradbury. By the way, Bradbury named All-Pro, Bob, on that NFLPA All-Pro team.
NFLPA? Yeah.
Wasn't it? Was Tone?
No, it was Slay. It was Slay.
Slay.
Yeah.
Okay. I saw Bradbury was an All-Pro
Pro
somewhere.
Football Hocus Pocus or whatever it was. Yeah.
Now that was TJ. That was TJ. TJ was Pro Football Focus All-Pro.
Yeah.
Team.
Well, TJ's
a good player, man.
I think he's
good player.
I don't want to mention him. Bradbury's okay. Yeah, I mean,
you like Bradbury now because he's such a nice guy.
He's a good guy, and
he's a great guy.
I just don't think he can. I don't think he can run with those younger guys.
No,
man.
he can't. But
he
so
makes
smart.
up for it with savvy. Yeah, he's very smart, and he's earned himself another contract, if not with the Eagles, with somebody. But yeah, I mean, Wink Martindale. I mean, their defense is the Giants' defense is a lot better than the Vikings' defense.
Well, everybody's a lot better than the Vikings. The problem is the Vikings' offense. I'm putting the over/under on Jefferson at 180 on whenever they're playing Saturday, Sunday.
I don't know. I would. I'll take the under on that because, and for this reason, I don't think they're going to be able to get in a rhythm. I think there's going to be a 3-and-out here, and then you're going to have the Giants going up and down the field.
Well, I will say this from an Eagles perspective, they have 4 potential opponents.
Yeah.
I think the easiest one of those opponents would be the New York Giants that everybody loves. So it's the Seahawks, Giants, Cowboys, or Bucks. I think the easiest path for the Eagles, they'll beat the Giants 99 times out of 100.
Yeah. Well, I think the easiest path is the Bucks. They don't have anybody left. Everybody's
Tom Brady, though.
Tom Brady, sir. He makes me nervous.
Yeah, but the Eagles can bring the pressure right up the middle. I mean, you're going to see.
Ryan Jensen's coming back, though. Ryan Jensen's coming back.
Yeah, you'll see 33-and-outs. He'll be throwing the ball away, or he'll get sacked. I mean, and they can't score points. When was the last time they scored any points?
And the Eagles they usually only score points in the last 2 minutes. That's what concerns
bad day,
people.
The Eagles get what, 22? That's twice as much as you need to beat the
Well,
Bucks.
they should beat all 4 of these teams. Any potential option.
I mean, that's the team that I would like in the first round. Well, actually, the team that I would like them to see them play is the Cowboys. You know their heads are going to be into it from start to finish.
Yeah, but the Cowboys are my only concern because they have some talent. The other 3 teams are talent deficient, as they say. They're limited, as you taught me to say, Bob.
They had some problems. Yeah, they had some problems that last game, though, and there was something to play for the Cowboys. They played.
Oh yeah, they're very inconsistent.
I don't know what was going on there, but yeah, I mean,
but when they play well, and you only got to play well on one day. When they play well, they concern me. Those other 3 teams are very, very limited.
But they don't play well on one day in the playoffs, John.
Well, that's true. That has been the recent history.
Remember last year? Was it last year when they didn't know what the rule was for?
Oh my God.
Yeah, Dak. Yeah, Dak Dak didn't know what the rule was.
That's
Dak's,
unacceptable.
That's Dak's problem. The head coach, all the coaching staff, and even the center. I mean, who does not know that rule? You know, I mean, you got to know that.
Especially when you've been a starting quarterback for years and you see the official place the football every single play.
That's why, and against the Eagles late in that game, the 40-34 game, I mean, Dak, he's running out of bounds. He's throwing the ball incomplete instead of just, you know, they had what did they have, a field goal anyway? He's throwing incomplete to stop the clock. They're his time management and that staff late in the game, it's awful. I mean, I don't trust him to win a close game. I don't trust the Cowboys to win a close game unless the other team's going to have to lose it. So that's where I am with them. That's why I wouldn't worry about them. And I think the Eagles will be really pumped up.
So all right. So let's do it for most difficult. So you have Seahawks, Giants, Cowboys, Bucks. Who would be the most difficult of those 4 teams? The Giants?
Seahawks, Giants. Yeah, I think they would.
I can't understand.
They don't have anything left
for the life of me.
Pound against Minnesota.
Tone,
that's the Super Bowl.
Tone, you are you're going to be here on Monday. Feel free to mock me. And the Giants might beat the Vikings. I'm not saying that because the Vikings aren't good. But if the Giants come in here and give the Eagles a game, feel free to mock me because that ain't happening.
I'll tell you this too. Hold it. And the Eagles too. When they have time off, they have a history with Sirianni of coming back rusty.
Well, they might struggle for a series or two, but the talent will. You
go back and look at the history of Sirianni. That's when they've struggled a little bit, even against. Who was it against Texas? Was it Texas?
Houston.
Yeah.
Yeah, Houston right. And the Colts, I think, right? They come off a bye week going to the Colts.
Right, exactly. I mean, they have issues. So, and those are two. What are those teams? They combined for like 7 wins or something like that.
Yeah. They were road games too. Houston short week.
They got a good road record though, John. I mean, there's a history of this team when it isn't playing every week of having some. Having problems, they give the other team a little bit more.
I'm opening up the trolls. Feel free. If the New York Giants come in here and beat them, or even give the Eagles a game,
I got them beating any of those teams, though. Any of those teams. I mean, the NFC is not good, and those teams are, in my mind, they're not good. Even you can say that. How did Minnesota get 12? What is it? 13 wins?
13.
They had to play a bunch of NFC teams, and. You know,
I don't know how they got to 13 wins, even playing all those teams.
Yeah, look.
Let me ask you guys this then. Let me ask you guys this. We brought up the Cowboys, right? We brought up Dak Prescott and the debacles they've been a part of over the past few years. I have to ask, who's under more pressure to make noise in the playoffs, Jalen Hurts or Dak Prescott? And I would love to get that perspective from both of you guys right now.
Yeah, I got a Tone. I would say that this is a real tough question because Dak is under immense pressure based on talked about what he did last year, and I think he's only won 1 playoff game, right?
Correct, 1-3. Yep,
1-1. Yeah. So I guess he's under a little more pressure, but Jalen Hurts is under a lot of pressure too, because he's got what is it in January they can. Well, the Eagles have his option for next year.
Yeah. No, he's got 1 more year, but they can talk extension after.
Exactly. I mean,
they can talk extension right now. Actually,
this is worth a lot of money. This and the next game, which I think it's going to be against the 49ers. So I would say a little bit more pressure on Dak because then the Cowboys, if they lose, if they don't, if they lose to the Bucks or even the next round. They can't just blame it all on McCarthy. I don't think he'll be back anyway. They'll try to do that, but I think the players will know. But there is pressure on Hurts for that, basically because of that contract thing, and he's hurt too. I don't, I don't know about.
Is that the ready-made excuse that the Eagles falter in the playoffs?
Well,
he's hurt.
Too. Remember, he
couldn't
run around. Yeah, I mean, and that's that's like, we sometimes we kid each other about this, is that sustainable, like with different players and that style he has to take off and run, is that sustainable? You better, I mean, he did it with no issue. And then
it only takes one hit.
Like at the end of the year, when you need him the most, there's a health issue. So there's a lot of pressure on him too.
Yeah. Well, my theory on that is, no, it's probably not sustainable, but so what? We all thought Carson Wentz was going to be the franchise quarterback. Take advantage of what you have in the moment. He's not going to be playing until he's 45 like Tom Brady. So, I mean, they're the best team in football. Take advantage of this sense of urgency, and that's where I want to take you, Bob. Shane Steichen going to do his virtual interviews this weekend. He's got 3 of them. Jonathan Gannon, again, is a high-profile candidate for the Houston Texans.
I heard that. Yeah. I read somewhere.
Yeah, you read that somewhere.
I don't know who wants that job, by the way.
So, this coaching, it's very rare for a coaching staff to be back together for a second consecutive year. The Eagles were able to do that with this group. It's not happening next year. So how much is the sense of urgency that this team needs to get it done right now? Everything is set up. The NFC stinks, Bob. The NFC stinks. It's the Eagles and everybody else. Well, San Francisco's good. The AFC is a problem, but you don't have to worry about that until you get to the Super Bowl. Yeah, they got to seize this moment, don't they?
I don't think they know what urgency is, really. I don't, not yet. Yeah. They got a lot of veterans here that know. Do they know it as a team? I'm not so sure. I don't know. I mean, they got a window. You have to look at them and say, with Jalen Hurts, they got a 3 or 4 year window. And by the way, I do think his style is sustainable if he's a little more prudent. If he gets
very prudent.
He wasn't prudent. That was, that game he was not. I mean, that game he made some of the worst decisions he's made all year. And it's
cold.
Yeah, whatever it was, that was not a good decision game. It wouldn't have been close, if he had done better. So, but and it was tougher to throw the ball.
It was cold, by the way.
You can't make excuses. But in terms of all that, John, urgency. Yeah, I mean and playing with a bye now. I mean, their last 3 games and now the bye. I mean, I don't know how you get them pumped up, fired up, for the first round of the playoffs.
Well, you better be fired up for the playoffs. But my only point,
they set all these records and stuff. Yeah, you're right, but they better be is right. But how do you do that? I mean, they haven't played great for what, a month, the whole month.
Here's what we had Ricky Ricardo on earlier, and he made the Giants sound like it was the Lawrence Taylor, Bill Parcells Giants. You have them too. My point is, if they're the most difficult hurdle, you will never have an easier road.
No,
you will never have an easier road.
The 49ers are the difficult.
Well,
hurdle.
Yeah.
I do think I don't think they're going to play great in the first round
but
either.
Even the 49ers, Bob, their starting quarterback is Brock Purdy.
That's hard to believe, isn't it? Mr. Irrelevant. Yeah. That's
look at the AFC. Look at the AFC. You have Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert. You would have Tua, but he's hurt.
Trevor Lawrence.
Lamar Jackson, but he's hurt. Trevor Lawrence. Look at the NFC. Number 2.
Trevor Lawrence fan, Tone. That ball he overthrew in the end zone. I can't believe
that was bad.
That was
Bob Groats. You are so unforgiving, sir.
Yeah,
so unforgiving.
That is Carson Wentz. I'm thinking, oh my God, how could you do that?
That was a bad throw. But
come down to a defensive.
Hey, Doug's got him going in the right direction, man. He's going to be a problem in 2 years.
But I still got to see more.
He's got to be a problem. By the way, Press Taylor's not an idiot again. Isn't that funny how that works? He was an idiot. He was the greatest coach in the history of the world. Oh, this young guy's so innovative. Then they got mad at Doug and they said, get this idiot out of here. Yeah. Now he's a decent coach again.
How about the job his brother Zach is doing in Cincinnati?
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, Burrow, it really does help, but and he just, that Joe Cool moniker on him, he does look cool. I mean, he's kind of like, there's another guy, great decisions, just really good. I mean,
the second best quarterback in the NFC is 45 years old. And number 3 is either Kirk Cousins or Dak Prescott.
If you looked at what he did this season, you can't say that.
Yeah, it might be Kirk.
You can't say that. Yeah.
Number 2 might be Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Watching
it will never be easier.
Tom Brady's down year is a great year for a lot of other guys, by the way.
Yeah. But watching Kirk Cousins is like watching one of those old black and white movies on TV, or Johnny Unitas in the Hot Tops. Oh my God! Excuse me while I yawn.
Oh man!
when he's airing it out to Justin Jefferson, I mean, there's not going to be a lot more of those highlights because Jefferson will get tripled. And by the way, what happened to Adam Thielen? Is he just?
He's old. I mean, everybody doesn't stay in state. He was a great.
I remember
receiver.
when he used to be good. Yeah,
I mean, he was a great receiver.
You don't even have to cover him now.
No, you don't. He's lost.
Red zone.
It happens
for sure.
It happens.
Yeah.
It definitely does. Bob, you brought up the fact that this team struggled. Right, 1-3 in the last 4 games, 2-2 in the last 4, and some would argue that 2-game losing streak, the Cowboys and the Saints, may be a blessing in disguise. And follow me here. When you lose, it forces you to revisit your flaws, right? And you can make an argument that this team, especially the coaching staff, you can make an argument that this coaching staff entered the past handful of games a little bit overconfident. And overconfident to the point where they didn't bother to alter their game plan at all for Gardner Minshew. Now, granted, no need to change your entire offense for just one guy over the course of a couple weeks. I don't believe in that, but it just seemed like they didn't even try to get him comfortable. And I'm of the mindset overconfidence can be just as dangerous as not having any confidence at all. So, do you think this 2-game losing streak forced this coaching staff to really double back and really try to get right and revisit their flaws and tighten up? And also, how much confidence do you have in this coaching staff's experience handling a bye week, going into the divisional round, trying to win the Super Bowl?
Yeah, they great points because they definitely are taking a look at this stuff. And one guy that we haven't really mentioned, but who was a factor, he got hurt in the second half of the Dallas game, is Lane Johnson, and that I mean, that's going to be a big factor. How long is he going to be able to go? And, we all know that he's going to go out there and try to play with a sports hernia, but how long is he going to be able to go? And oh, by the way, I on Merrill Reese's show the other night, Dick Vermeil was on there, and he was talking about the Lane Johnson thing, and he's just, we all know what a shutdown type of tackle Lane Johnson is. His guy never gets through, and what a big deal that is to have somebody like that. But he was saying that they better have a really good plan for the backup, because he's not sure that, usually what happens when somebody has an injury, significant injury like that, is the backup doesn't get enough starters rep, and then you have to put the backup in and bang, you're in big trouble. So and I think that was part of that tone with the loss to New Orleans, a big factor. I don't know how many times Minshew was sacked, but it also was a factor in the second half of that game with Dallas. So they better have a really good plan. And I don't know what you do. Driscoll's still got to be the guy, right, John? He's still got to be the guy there.
Yeah.
But you better have a better plan than what you had in any of those.
Well,
games.
they got to help him. They just can't leave him on an island and say, "Hey, do what Lane does." I think. To let you know, Bob, change in the schedule. Jalen Hurts will speak after practice today.
Oh my God.
So you got up early for no reason.
Do you believe they did that?
Yeah.
Do you believe that?
So, anyway,
John, I'll use the time to floss, You know what I mean? Like they think that's really funny. So I will floss. Yeah.
Yeah. For those who don't know, we were on Zoom with Nick Sirianni on Tuesday, and he nearly choked when he saw Bob flossing on Zoom.
Hold it. That's what Bob Lang said.
Yeah, that's what Bob Lang said.
Yeah.
Man, you're a 1-on-1, Mr. Groats.
But as far as Nick goes, Nick Sirianni. By the way, did he seem tired on Tuesday? Is that me? Did you get that sense?
You could probably you're probably better at that body language than me.
Yeah.
But
Well, I mean, Jalen Hurts kept him up late, man. You know, after the game, he said, "Listen, we're going into the film room. I don't care what the kids say. I don't care how much taco soup you have to make. We're going to the film room. So I'm gonna keep you behind up."
Yeah, I would have sent Jalen off to Cabo. I would have said, if you see any of the Cowboys down there, tell them to, But I would have gotten him away. He's got to get out of the building. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned Dick Vermeil and his history with this organization,
and very impressed with this Eagles season and with the coaching. Sirianni and his staff. Yeah. He said people don't realize how hard that is to win all those games. And, especially with a bull. There's always a bullseye on you in Philly. He's very impressed with Nick Sirianni and his staff.
So that bullseye, and nobody knows it better than Dick, the pressure of being the head coach of this team. So we all know the numbers, 14 wins, franchise, 70 sacks, franchise record, top 5 offense, top 5 defense. It all goes away if he doesn't perform in the playoffs, right? So how much pressure is there on Nick Sirianni?
There's a ton of pressure,
Yeah.
And he's got that other thing going with not knowing about what's going to happen with his coordinators. That's new for him, they did interview last year.
Gannon had 3 last year, so there was some of it.
But still, how can that not be in the back of your mind? Especially you got a bye week to think about it. Yeah, but they better have some pretty good plays. I mean, they better open up that playbook, whoever it is, and just really get after it, and just cross their fingers that the quarterback doesn't aggravate that injury. Do you think he aggravated that injury in the game?
I don't know. We're going to have a doctor. We're going to have Dr. Jessica Flynn on tomorrow. I'm excited to talk to her because I don't know what's going on with this stinking injury. Ask
her about that deep throw that he made. I mean, that's as far as I've seen him throw the ball since he's been with the Eagles. Remember?
Yeah, I don't think the throwing part is the problem. I think the contact is the problem. I think the contact is the problem. But I'm not a doctor. At Bob Groats from the Delco Times, read. Are you going to write about Dick Vermeil? What he thinks about this thing?
About it? Yeah. He just he thinks like you guys, definitely. He thinks that there's only 2 obstacles for them to get to the Super Bowl, and those are the Niners and also the Cowboys. He thinks those are the teams that have
I'm with Dick. See, great minds think alike. Yeah, I think it's clearly San Francisco, but Dallas after that would be the most difficult.
And just real quick with the San Francisco thing, the thing that really he brought up an interesting point. How many times have the Eagles been tested by a real rugged team like that this year?
They're very physical.
Like that.
Now, we all talked about Tennessee, but Tennessee, we didn't know Tennessee was falling apart at the time.
They were all hurt.
Yeah, they were all hurt. But that's a very physical team.
Yeah. But you're right. I mean, that they still checked that box. They won convincingly, but and the playoffs, the intensity goes up. But the other thing too, he said, they got Brock Purdy back there. He may be 5-0 as a starter, but he hasn't been in the playoffs either. So
I don't trust him.
He'll have a game under his belt when he gets to the.
Yeah, I don't trust Brock Purdy.
Yeah,
I don't trust him.
He has that team around him. It's kind of hard to trust him fully, right? Mr. Irrelevant, as they say.
And the defense,
defense is great. Defense
is
great.
Spectacular.
Our old buddy D'Amico Ryan's potentially going to be a head coach in this league.
Where do you think he ends up? Where do you think both you guys? Where do you think he ends up?
I don't know. The problem with D'Amico is he's a defensive guy, and most teams aren't looking for defensive guys. Well, they aren't looking. They want offensive guys. They all want offensive guys. I don't agree with it, but that's what they want.
Remember John Harbaugh?
Yeah. He's still doing a good job.
All right. Tough. Well,
I don't really know where D'Amico will go, but Bob the Hammer Groats, sir, we appreciate you always for coming on to the show, man. You provide us with a lot of insight. You provide the people with a lot of entertainment, man. You're one of one, like I always say, sir. We appreciate you.
And now you can go in the dollar store because Jalen, there you go. You got the applause.
Oh my God.
And Jalen is Jalen got pushed back, so you can do whatever you want. You can go to Royal Farms, Wawa, get some AM, PM coffee.
You think you got more treatment?
Maybe.
I don't know, but maybe you could buy James Bradbury some Bengay or something. Maybe he'll loosen those knees
after
up.
that MRI, yeah. Dollar store Bengay, yeah. Oh my
Oh man, Bob Groats, thank you so much, sir.
And
You've been great.
Suffered 3rd-degree burns, yeah. There you go. Always a
Thanks,
pleasure,
Bob.
though.
Thank
Take
you.
care, Bob. We appreciate you, sir. Thank you. Oh man, Bob Groats, man. He is one of the funnier guys that come with this show, man. But also, again, does great work for the Ducko Times as a sports writer. On top of that, does great work for WIP and WBCB 1490 AM. So we're going to go into our final break of the show. It's the home stretch. This is Birds 365. He's John McMullen, and I'm Tony DeShields II, filling in for the famous, the one and only Jody McDonald. We'll be back in a moment, guys.
Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Number 1, Jeff D'Ambrosio. Destination Downingtown is rolling back prices for December to remember. For a limited time, you can own, not lease, brand new 2023 Jeep Wranglers for only $30,995 or $339 per month. New Rams starting at only $30,995 or new Ram 1500 Bighorn Crew Cabs $189 per month. Zero down can deliver. Get the price you want, the selection you need, and the VIP treatment you deserve. Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown, Big Finish Sales Event.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Game Show with Seth Joyner.
I knew that they had a running game.
Derek Gunn.
He has put in the effort.
Devin Caney.
Had we not won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying?
And Mike Missinelli.
Well, you know who Philly is.
Post game, now streaming on the 6ABC family of apps.
Welcome back to Birds 365. He's John McMullen, and I'm your guy, Tony DeShields II, filling in for Jody Mack. We are at the home stretch of the show. We appreciate you guys, as always, for locking in on the content. Continue to smash that like button. Continue to stay engaged, regardless if you agree or if you disagree we're going to still be here no matter what, and the content is going to continue to flow, and the heads are still going to roll. John, great show, or was it not?
Oh, great show, Tone. NFL, we were talking about this before when we talked about the Eagles and the Cowboys. NFL media put out the regular season viewership stats. 88 NFL games of the top 100 TV shows. 88 were NFL games. But here's the problem. I'm sorry, Eagles fans. They have the top 5. Number 1, Giants, Cowboys,
of course,
42.1 million. Number 2, the only non-Cowboy game, Bills, Lions, week 12. Number 3, Cowboys, Packers. Number 4, Cowboys, Eagles. Number 5, Cowboys, Vikings. There's your reason.
They're America's team for a reason. They're America's team for a reason. And look, I don't really buy into that. They haven't been successful in quite a long time, but there's something about that white and blue, right? There's something about that star. I don't know whose hand Jerry Jones is shaking, but man, he is cutting deals. And look, business is business, and you got to acknowledge, man, the business acumen of the Dallas Cowboys is top notch.
Yeah, that's a class organization too. I always joke, best spread in the league, tremendous stadium. Was talking to some ushers there. I tell all the story. He tailors jackets for the ushers. They have tailored jackets. Yeah, I mean, say what you want about the guy. Football-wise, a lot of issues. Class organization.
Hey, when you look good, you feel good. We got a couple minutes left in the show, John. I have one final question for you. It's going to be rapid fire. I know we're really tight on time. Who's your MVP for the offense this season? Who's your MVP for the defense?
MVP of the offense is easy. That's Jalen Hurts. He's normally was right up there for MVP of the league. Obviously, the injury kind of derailed that. Patrick Mahomes is going to be the MVP of the league, but Jalen Hurts should be top 5, deserves to be top 5. Certainly the MVP. Defense, I shifted a little bit towards the end of the season. I said yesterday on the show the most consistent play-to-play defensive player on the Eagles is TJ Edwards, which remains true. But Hassan Reddick is the MVP because of the splash plays. And, they're important. 16 sacks, leads the NFL in forced fumbles, strip sacks. Tremendous signing by Howie Roseman. And you think about Howie Roseman might be the real MVP for everything he added, because A.J. Brown, we know what he's meant to the offense, and James Bradbury, all the additions to the defense, unbelievable offseason for Howie Roseman.
I would have to agree. That's it for us, you guys. You've been locked in on Birds 365. We appreciate you guys as always. Like I said before, smash that like button. Continue to stay engaged. If you guys want more from John McMullen and his writing and his insight on the Philadelphia Eagles, check out JAKIBsports.com. That's JAKIB Sports.com. There's a lot of articles on there. There's a lot of content on there for you guys to consume from not just John McMullen, but also from Paul Domowich and Joe Santiliquido. This has been Birds 365 via JAKIB Sports. He's John McMullen. I'm your guy, Tone DeShields II, and our guy, Jody Mack, will be back on Friday. Get well soon. We'll see you guys in 2 and 2.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.